what are the things that you would say are the main compelling reasons to do a shortlet instead of a long let, specifically in London?
Money. If you've got a property and you shortlet it, you're going to make about double. Sometimes, and this is sometimes, you'll make triple. Your listing and your success lives or dies on your reviews. Somebody comes in, they expect a hotel quality service. If they come in and there's dust, or the oven hasn't been cleaned, or there's hair on a pillow, that's grounds for a cancellation and a full refund and a 1-star review. Hello? I think he's got the plumber with him. I think he said it might be coming from the bathroom. She said they're home. She said their baby's sleeping, so if you go there, try and too loud. You can keep that in.
All right, nice
Thank
one. Great, thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're back.
Back.
Struggling Entrepreneur episode 8, I believe. And we're here for an intimate one-on-one conversation with the CEO of, what's your company called?
It's called Key.
Company of Key, Daniel Rose. Good to have you in.
Thanks for having me.
A regular face on Struggling Entrepreneur. I feel like it's a bit loose, but it should be fine.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
how are you today, first of all?
Good, man. Good. It's been a pretty warm day. Fairly quiet by Key standards. We're getting towards the end of the summer now. So the peak season has mellowed out a little bit.
Yep.
So a couple of things to deal with, some mold here and there, just a regular day at the office.
Okay, nice. So I guess let's start with then. So Key, what is Key? What does Key do?
So Key is a property management service, specifically targeted towards shortlets. Shortlets are basically Airbnb rentals, Booking.com rentals. Anything that's less than 6 months is technically considered a shortlet.
Okay.
So our bookings range anything from two nights up to a few months at a time.
Got it.
And we basically manage the properties on behalf of landlords.
Got it. So landlord has a property.
Yeah.
And they will give that property to you to would you manage everything, or do they need to do anything? Like, how does that work?
It depends on what the landlord wants. Some landlords are a bit more active, some are a bit more hands off. So it completely depends on what the landlord wants. But a typical arrangement would be we'd have the keys, we would onboard the property, take professional photos, get it listed on various platforms, and begin taking bookings. And manage those bookings basically. So we deal with the cleaning, check-ins, the check-outs, communicating with the guests, any issues that might arise. Somebody gets locked out at 2 o'clock in the morning, they call me.
Got it.
So we deal with that basically.
So really, if you're a landlord, do they have to do any, like, if they're just like to you, Daniel, here's the property, I'm busy, I don't really want to like do any work to manage this. Do they have to do anything? Is there anything they have to do?
Apart from signing the service agreement, they literally just need to give me the keys, and I'll do the rest.
Okay.
We will do the rest, us and the team.
So I guess the alternative to doing shortlets is doing like a longer term
Longlets,
like
which is traditional rentals. So most landlords typically and traditionally what they've done is if they've got a buy-to-let mortgage, they'll invest in a property, they'll find some tenants, or they'll give it to an estate agents. He'll find them some tenants, put them in the property on a 12-month contract, an AST it's called, and then that will just renew every year, which is what most people have nowadays because buying properties is expensive. So most people live under AST tenancies, and they're good in the sense that it's kind of secure income, but the returns are very, very low.
Okay.
Like if you've just dropped, I don't know, $500,000 and you've put down 25% deposit of that, you're going to have a very, very low yield, kind of return on your investment in terms of rental income and what you're going to make back. So
what is it that makes I'm assuming long lets are more popular by and large than short lets, right?
Yeah.
So what is it that makes landlords use long lets if they're so low yields? Is there some
it's just what's been the kind of established system that's been in place. Most people know what long lets are. They're familiar with them. So I guess part of what I do is kind of spread awareness about short lets and the benefits of what, because it offers you as a landlord a lot more flexibility. If you've got a property and you want it back, or you want to go stay there, because I've got some landlords that I work with, that only rent their properties out part-time. So they live outside of the city, for example. And I should also specify that we operate mainly in central London.
Got it.
Kind of operate within a 5-mile radius of Paddington.
Got it. Yeah.
So just a
If
disclaimer.
someone's in like Uganda.
Yeah, exactly. Someone's in Uganda. I can't really help you. I'm sorry. I'd like to, but at this stage where, because it is quite labor intensive, it's difficult to take on properties that are far away. You know, we've got the cleaning, we've got linen to deal with, maintenance issues. Somebody's locked out, for example, like I said. You need to be able to respond quite rapidly to a situation.
Got it. I'm going to ask a question. I already know a lot of the answers to this because, you know, I'm a client of yours.
That's just right, yeah.
I bought a property and I've decided I could long let, I could short let it. Best thing for me to do is to give it to Daniel. And that's gone great so far. But if I hadn't, what are the things, if I'm a landlord and I say to you, okay, Daniel, I'm not necessarily choosing between Key and other companies, but I'm choosing between, should I long let this or should I short let?
Yeah.
What are the things that you would say are the main compelling reasons to do a short let instead of a long let, specifically in London?
Money, I'd say. Money.
Can't argue with that.
If you're an investor, you know, what better argument than more rental income, bigger yields. If you typically in London, if you've got a property and you short let it, you're going to make about double. Sometimes, and this is sometimes, you'll make triple, but more often than not, it's double, which is, you know, it's a pretty significant jump. But like I said, it is labor intensive. Like you have to have. I think you can try and do it yourself, and people do it themselves. For example, I had a friend who was doing it himself. He works as a full-time. He's a pharmacist. He's like the hardest working man I've ever met in my life. Bless him. He's he works for NHS 111. He's a pharmacist. He's got an a portfolio of properties that he's invested in. And because he knew I was doing Airbnb and I was always talking to him about it, he was like, he's a very hands-on guy. So he's like, I'll do it myself. And about a month later, he came back to me. He almost had a nervous breakdown. He was like, how do you do it? Wow. He's like, how do you do it? And the truth is, I don't think I would be able to do it without the team that I've got in place.
Got it.
It's not just me. I'm not just a one-man band.
So who's on your team? Like who else does it take to make it happen?
It's a team effort. So I've got a cleaning manager. She's fantastic. She deals with like the attention to detail. Like I've had so many good positive reviews and feedback from landlords. They're like, she goes above and beyond the call of duty.
In cleaning manage, so what does that mean?
So she deals with the cleaners. Okay. Dealing with cleaners and cleaning management and making sure that quality control is there is a world within itself.
Yeah.
And a very big pain point for most people who try and do Airbnbs. You know, when you're short letting a property and you've got it on these platforms, your listing and your success lives or dies on your reviews. Somebody comes in, you know, they expect a hotel quality service. So if they come in and there's dust or the oven hasn't been cleaned or there's hair on a pillow, that's grounds for a cancellation and a full refund and a 1-star review for you, which will basically take you out the game. And
you as a CEO, how many properties are you guys managing now?
So at the moment, we've got about portfolio of probably about 40.
Got it. So there's no way you could check, you know,
40 properties physically. No, it's
doing everything else.
Exactly.
So you need a good.
You need a team. Manager. Yes, you need a cleaning manager. We've also got a recent addition to the team, a revenue optimization expert who's coming in and kind of taking over the like optimizing the listings. So at the end of the day, these platforms are platforms. They're search engines. So they've all got their own algorithms and there's different variables that you need to kind of take into account to make sure that your listing is always on the front page. Part of it is price, but there's other factors: reviews, your photos, your title, the wording, etc. So I've got somebody now who specifically deals with that and is constantly monitoring and adjusting. And then even the pricing on the calendar. You know, you don't want to drop the prices too low because you're leaving money on the table. But also, if your prices are too high, you're going to have gaps and vacancies, which is really not good. And that's, again, going back to short let versus long let. When you've got a long let, you have no void periods because somebody's paying you monthly for 12 months and, you know, that's covered. So in terms of occupancy rates, if you've got a long let, it's probably going to be 100% occupancy. Yeah. Whereas on a short let, it won't be 100% because there'll naturally be maybe a day or two gap.
I see.
And we try and avoid taking the shorter bookings if we can.
I see.
If it's like, if there's a calendar, let's say there's a gap coming up in 2 days' time, and there's a 2-day gap, we'll take a booking for that just to avoid the gap.
Right.
But I don't want to really take a booking in December for 2 nights.
Got it. Okay. So I guess explain a bit. So how it works is you almost have like a calendar in front of you, and does each day have a rate for that day?
Yes.
And then people.
Yes.
So because I know when I book an Airbnb, I'll kind of just put in, here's one I want to stay to, here's one I want to stay from, and it'll give me a price.
It'll give you a price.
So how does that work on your end, and what do you do to make, like, what is the service that you provide to landlords to make sure that price is not too high, not too low? Like, how does that actually work?
So we've got a software that we use that has all of our listings on there. It's like a big multi-calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And we work with a couple of bits of software and this new revenue optimization expert to essentially ensure that those nights that are on the calendar are at the best price,
Right.
so they can get booked. So that when you as the end customer go on Airbnb and look, you'll see an attractive, reasonable price that will entice you to book. But I think it's not the only price is definitely a factor for people, but it's also it's about taking them on a journey.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that your photos look good, which is part of what we offer as well, which is the professional photography. You want to make sure that the place, like, it looks inviting. The sofa looks comfortable when you want to come. The bed's like crisp and nicely made, and the towels like rolled up. It takes people on a journey, and they imagine themselves. It goes again back to the psychology of sales. It's like people make buying decisions. It's an emotional decision, and they justify it with logic. That because it was cheap or because of the location, but really it made them feel good.
Yeah.
And that's why they bought it, and that's why you get the money.
I could definitely see myself doing that. Like, if you've traveled,
Yeah.
you go on Airbnb, you look at a place, maybe you find one that it makes most sense to book, but then you look at another one, it's like, it looks so cool. Like,
it looks so nice.
Like,
the photos
just like there's something about it that
invites you.
You're like, I guess the location is quite good. Or like, it's really close to the airport, or it's close. Like, you'll
find some logic to justify why you want to book it, and then also the reviews. You'll then, your logical side of your brain will kick in and go, let's look at the reviews.
Yeah.
I like this place. What are other people saying? Is there social proof? So you'll go through the reviews, and again, that's what I mean. If you've got shit reviews, then people they're gonna be put off. You're gonna lose a lot of money basically if you've got bad reviews. And
again, I think, like, again, being a client of yours, another thing that you do that I think is extremely valuable is your reviews aren't just based on how good the property is, right? There's a kind of a wrapper around it where I know if you're managing one of my properties, the chance of it getting good reviews is higher because you have a really fast response rate, like inhumanly fast response rate to anything that they want. Like, they want an extra fan because it's hot, you'll kind of do that. The check-in, you'll make sure they understand everything, and they'll know if they have any questions. Like, there's somebody there who, I think pretty much all of the reviews I've had on my property that you manage have specifically said response rate great, really attentive host.
Very good
I guess that's one of the things that you
so again, and this is also what limits us geographically, is being able, because that's part of the service that we offer, is this lightning fast, rapid response. Because when something goes wrong, rarely it does, but when it does go wrong, what will save you and what will make sure that the person still has a good time and still leaves a good review is the way you handle it and the way you respond, and the speed and kind of attentiveness at which you respond. People want to feel like that you care about them,
Yeah.
And like, you put yourself in their shoes. You've gone on holiday. You want to enjoy yourself. You don't really want something to go wrong. It happens, and there's nothing that, it's hard. Like, we do our best to try and make sure that the places are maintained and things don't happen, but it happens sometimes. Maybe the fuse goes off. Maybe it's really hot and there's no fan. Whatever it may be. When something does go wrong, we want to make sure that the person feels that you care and that you respond rapidly, almost instantly. Yeah. So when a request comes in, that's why we limit ourselves to a 5-mile radius, because we need to be within like a 30-40 minute commute to them, so we can just basically get to them.
The bar for them is so much higher than, say, like a traditional property manager. You'll see people who their boiler breaks and then 5 days later it gets fixed. And
If you're lucky, 5 days later.
you know,
Yeah.
or like however long, you know.
Yeah,
Or-
I've got friends who their bathroom was out of service for 3 months. And the landlord, there was a fight basically between the landlord and the estate agency.
That's crazy.
And they just kept passing it back and forth. And these poor people were just sitting there without a bath, and they're paying rent every month.
That's crazy.
You know, whereas on a shortlet that would never happen because
Bro, more than
you get a
one
bad
day,
review. Yeah.
More than one day, people are, you know,
They're
people
either
are
going to cancel,
expecting-
and the platforms are usually on like when it comes to things like that. If you're at fault as a host, they're very lenient towards giving the guests money back, refunds. So you need to be like that's what I mean. That's what I mean by labor intensive.
Yeah.
You need to be like Johnny on the spot, basically ready to go.
Yeah, because my mum, I think she went to like the Lake District recently in an Airbnb.
Yeah.
And the toilet broke.
Yeah.
And I think it was like day 2 of the toilet being broken and she couldn't get a response. And she was like, Joe, like, you know about Airbnb. Like, how long does it usually take for someone to at least give a response and say, you know,
be
like,
like
well,
seconds.
Daniel would have responded in 10 minutes. or like Daniel would have fixed it in the first day.
Yeah.
But
Same day it would have been.
I don't know. I don't know what the general standard is
Yeah.
of the industry. So I don't know. Do you have any, like, have you stayed in a lot of Airbnbs or have you been mainly on the
I've been on the
like hosting?
the hosting
So
end
you
of
haven't
it.
seen like what the like non
what the competition's like, the novice. No, I think I've heard stories,
Right.
again from friends,
Yeah.
who say that they've had bad experiences with unresponsive hosts, rude hosts, places not being as advertised, because that was a big thing as well, which is people make false advertisements about their properties. So yeah, that's also one stigma with it is like the trust element. So that's why we try and go above and beyond to make sure that people who do come, because they're paying more money, have a good time. You know, they're paying for a service. We want to deliver that service and make sure they have a good experience.
Got it. Okay. And then I guess speaking again about the London market then, so there's the options to do things by yourself, which we've spoken about, quite a tough route to go down.
Yeah, if like I said, if you've got the inclination and the patience and the time, you can probably do it on one property, maybe two. Any more than that, and it starts getting messy. You do need to have like a bit of a team in place. Things start going wrong, quality control, because like unless you hire your own cleaners, it's going to be hard to ensure that they clean it to a standard that is good enough for people who are paying, let's say, top dollar to stay in London.
Because essentially, if you want to, you're just giving yourself a job.
Yeah,
So.
you're just creating a full-time job for yourself, basically.
Whereas with a Longlet property, it's not as much.
No.
Let's say you wanted to manage your own on the long term.
You can
you've got
scale
that
it.
leeway.
Yeah, so that's probably another reason why landlords go down that route, because it's a lot more hands off. You know, Longlet tenants have a lot less expectations of the landlord.
Got it. Yeah.
You know, if you're living there and your light bulb goes out, you're gonna go fix it yourself. You know, you don't expect your landlord to, unless you're very, very like entitled, I guess.
Yeah, I guess there's probably some people like that.
Yeah.
Fine. So there's do it yourself. Fine. We know the issues with that. And then we've got there's other Airbnb management companies.
Yeah.
There's some of them that are really huge companies.
Yes.
I've seen
yes.
that because I Google it or whatever, they come up on my Instagram. They're these, you know, they manage hundreds of or thousands of properties.
Yeah.
I guess what are your opinions on those, and what does a landlord need to think about if they're thinking, you know, which provider should I go to?
I think this industry is one of those ones. It's one of those rare ones where bigger doesn't always mean better. It's because it's so labor intensive, as I keep saying. It's difficult to scale and offer that same level of kind of customizable, tailored service that's kind of suited around what the landlord wants. And that's one thing that we kind of try and pride ourselves on and try and really push for is being able to offer a very flexible service that works around what the landlord, each individual landlord wants, because people buy for their reasons, not yours. You know, every situation is unique. Every landlord has their own journey and kind of circumstances that they're going through. Like I gave the example, some people want to stay in the property, so they like the flexibility, come down to London a couple of nights a week, block it off, stay, don't have to book a hotel, it's their own property. And then the rest of the time it's rented on Airbnb or booking.com. Some landlords, I think it's completely. So I think the main kind of difference or the challenge with this kind of industry is offering that same level of service. And I've had a few landlords actually come over from one of the bigger providers for that specific reason. They were like, look, they were good in the beginning, and then as they grew, it felt much less personal. It felt very like kind of rigid and kind of corporate, and they had a. So I'm just
Get it.
hello. Yes. Hi. Yes. Hi. Sorry, did you hear my voice note? I sent a voicemail. Yes. Yeah. Of course. Of course. I'll let them know. I think he said, yeah. No, that's fine. I think he's got the plumber with him. I think he said it might be coming from the bathroom. Mm. Mm. Fine. Yeah. I'll let him know. I'll let him know now. I think he said they were on the way, and I told him just if I couldn't get through to you guys to just knock on the door, and see if you were in. But I'll let him know that you guys are at home, um, and hopefully it gets resolved quickly. Has everything else been okay otherwise? Lovely, lovely. All right, that's really great to hear. Well, thank you so much for calling me back, and I'm sure you'll see the landlord. His name. You'll see him shortly. All right, thanks, Kat. Thanks for calling. Speak soon. Cheers, bye.
Bit of live demonstration, brand management.
You can keep that in.
Even when we're doing the podcast,
Even during the
Daniel's
podcast,
looking after guests,
making sure
making
they
sure landlords are getting stuff
have a
done.
good experience.
Amazing, man. He doesn't just talk about it.
Yeah. That almost seems scripted.
That's quality. Yeah, that's
Let me-
good, man. Live demonstration of Daniel's client care.
The tenant called me back. She said they're home. She said their baby's sleeping. So if you go there, try and not be too loud. I think the baby's sleeping in the spare bedroom. But yeah, they said they're home, and you guys are welcome to go around and kind of go in.
There you go, a masterclass already.
Done.
A masterclass.
Done. Right.
But yeah, so we were talking about the larger. I guess generally, I think this is true with a few industries at least. Like in the consulting industry. So I work for a company that I joined when it had 20 people.
Yeah.
And it's going from that phase of like being 20 people to going to trying to aim to be like 200, 300 people. And one of the big challenges is you're keeping your work consistent and keeping quality exceptional is very, very hard to do, because in the early stages, you've got the people like the founders, the heads of the company who are doing a lot of the work. And then the next phase is they hire a team and they handpick all of the team.
Yeah.
And then as they grow beyond that, the people who they hired are then hiring.
So
it kind of dilutes.
Yeah,
exactly. The quality dilutes.
Mm.
They're not involved in the work anymore.
Mhm.
Like the people who are selling you the work are not going to be involved whatsoever in the delivery of the work. And so that is a very big challenge when you scale. Whereas you guys are kind of committed to being that, like you actually are dealing with the land. You're not just like selling them on it and being like, all right, my team is going to, like, you're never going to see me again.
That's a question that comes up. They're like, okay, so let's say we sign up. Who am I dealing with? I'm like me. Who calls them? Me. Who do they speak to? Me. Like it's still quite early stage for us. So that's kind of what we offer is that attentive kind of tailored approach that we're available when you want us, when you want to speak to us, and we will treat the property as if it's our own. We'll manage it and treat it like it's our own home. Like it's our own property. And this is the kind of feedback that we've had from landlords. A lot of them say you go above and beyond for us and for the guests, and they say like the landlords who left, the bigger providers left because of that reason. They were like it became exactly what you said, diluted. So they had these account managers, and each time they called back, it was somebody else, and it was very frustrating. There was no one point of contact. Whereas with us, it's one point of contact. It's me. As
we've just seen.
As you've seen. The guests call me, I call the landlords. Yeah. So it's
it makes sense just logically. If you have, if you have 1,000 properties, now you need 15 property managers or whatever, all having this portfolio, and those property managers, they're salaried people who clock off, and this isn't their business.
Shift is
done. They're not as bothered. Whereas this is you, like this is your, this is your business. You care. You started it. You learn everything. Like you're one of the leading, probably expert, definitely in London, probably the best in London and one of the best in the world at this. And their landlords at the phase you're at now are getting that.
Yes, they're getting that service.
So I guess my question then is, if I'm a landlord, I'm thinking, is that part of your plan, or is the plan to, grow and eventually, you're not involved and I'll deal with some account manager who's been hired and may or may not be as good as Daniel, the real deal?
I think for me, the real beauty, because I like challenges, and I see this as a challenge, so it's beautiful for me, is trying to basically offer the same level of service as we grow and as more properties come our way and as we get more landlords. Still offering that same level of service is what I'm gonna try and make our USP.
Yep.
And why people should come join us, because we're the guys who give a shit about your property.
Yeah.
We're gonna look after it.
I guess one of the ways you can do that is through the franchising stuff you've been talking about recently, right?
Yes. So this is something that's kind of quite very early stage and quite exciting for us. Is we're thinking about franchising and branching out to areas that we don't currently operate in, and having little clusters around there. So even within London, like maybe segmenting it out, and having different managers. But again, the people that come on board need to have skin in the game. Yep. They need to be on that same level of commitment and offer that same level, because if they're taking on the key brand, then they're taking on a personal guarantee, basically, that we're going to look after your property like it's our own.
Interesting.
So that's something that we've been talking about, and hopefully trying to implement.
Yeah, that's a good, unique offering, right? Because I think the thing that makes me really comfortable working with you guys is I know the person who's running it is really invested. So I mean, if I were to work with a huge company, I know I'd be dealing with salaried people who clock off, and a year ago they were doing something else. Probably next year they're going to be something different.
It's, I mean, and for some people that's fine. They like the big brand names, and they like something they can trust and don't have to worry about it, and it works. But I feel like there are people out there who care a lot about their properties, and they want that flexibility, and they want that personal touch, and they want to feel like there's somebody there, just like the guests, that actually cares. And those are the ones that we've managed to kind of work with successfully.
Got it.
I mean, even in the beginning, when I first started doing this, I wanted to do a bit of market research. So I had a property that I gave to one of these big competitors, and that was the point. That was kind of a turning point for me. It made me realize these guys don't actually know what they're doing. Like, they don't offer any better of a service than I would to my guests, because I was doing it myself. I was renting my property out, and I was taking bookings, and I was doing personal check-ins, and I'd arrive and I'd make sure everything was spotless and clean, and there was little touches and maybe some little chocolates, and I had 5-star reviews. So I was a super host, had 5-star reviews. Everybody had a lovely time. As soon as I gave my property to them, I lost super host status. I got 3 or 4 back-to-back on the trot 2-star reviews, 3-star reviews, and they all said the same thing. They said the check-in was awful, communication was awful, we got lost, we couldn't find our way in. Whereas I would actually go, and again, it's difficult to do this when you're trying to scale, but I would actually go and meet them at the property entrance, or if they were lost, I would go and physically talk to them on the phone, find them and guide them in. Yeah. Whereas it was a big kind of, but I guess a bit faceless. Yeah. Like, there was an account manager who you might be lucky to speak to them once a week if they were available or on shift. And this is before the days of remote work, where they actually had an office. And I remember going down there, and again, this is going to lead into the next point about crazy stories and horror stories. So I actually experienced it with my own property. Wow. At a pretty wild.
And out of interest, so these competitors or these other options, are they priced at a more budget price point than you guys at Keep?
No, the opposite.
They
actually charge more. Yeah,
they charge more.
So they offer.
I actually didn't know this.
well, in my opinion, a poorer service.
Wow.
Or in the opinion of the landlords that we've worked with, a poorer service, less flexibility, and they charge more money.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So when the landlords started coming over, and I was like, how much were you paying? And they told me, I was like, oh, okay.
Because I was about to sum up by saying, okay, so there's this cheaper option, which maybe is less personal than this, but they're more expensive.
They're more expensive. Yeah.
Okay, so I was gonna try and make a fair a fair trade off of what a landlord might choose.
Well, they have to be more expensive because they have more staff, right, and they have more expenses. But you don't get more for your money.
So in the interest of us not trying to sound bad, what argument would you make to go with a large company? I guess the reason would be
if you don't know anything,
yeah,
and you're not sure, and there's because there are a million and one property managers out there.
Yeah,
every guy who gets a couple of properties wants to do this and starts offering it as a service. So there's a lot of people out there who feel like scared to give their property, because imagine this is your investment, this is your life savings. And it is a big asset. You're handing it over to somebody. If they're not, I guess if their intentions aren't, or if they're not on the ball, then it could go very wrong very quickly.
I see.
For them.
Fine.
So
yeah,
it's
that
the
of course makes sense. It does make sense.
Trust element.
So the reason they'd go with it's because
they're established.
They're big. They're not going anywhere. They've got huge marketing budgets, which again I guess is why they're more expensive.
Again,
as well.
exactly. So they can target you. They've got massive budgets. So that's all. I think that's one of the main things that they've got going for them is they've got this big marketing team who can get the word out there and get them in front of landlords. But it doesn't mean that those landlords are going to get a better quality service, even if they're paying more money.
Okay. So I would see it as then really, it's like Key is kind of just like it's almost like a secret, really. The only reason you wouldn't go with Key is because you don't know about it, in my view. Like the only reason, if I am a landlord, and if I was like, okay, I've seen a lot of stuff online about shortlets and longlets. I've decided shortlets are the best way to go. Yeah. Probably the reason I wouldn't go with Keys because you guys have a smaller marketing budget, and I just wouldn't know.
Didn't know, yeah.
Just wouldn't know any better.
Yeah. I guess so.
So it's kind of just like it's a secret that we're trying not to keep so well. Yeah. Fine. Okay. Cool. So let's talk a bit about what it entails then, like your day to day. So what's a normal day for Daniel, Key CEO?
It's usually it starts with come to the office, check up on messages, check the prices on the calendar, make sure things are booked, and if there's any gaps, try and adjust that and address that as quickly as possible. Respond to any inquiries or messages or things that have come in from the night before. And then it's straight on to trying to do, I guess, growth related activities, trying to reach out to get the word out there, spread the good word. And then I call them my rounds, which will involve, it's a very flexible, you have to be very flexible, and it's a very varied role. Yeah. You don't know what you're going to get called out for. And obviously I've got a team of freelancers that I work with as well. From handymen to plumbers to electricians, so they mainly deal. But if there's something that needs addressing quickly, if I can go, I'll go and give it a personal touch.
Got it. Which you've done in my place several times.
Sprinkle that bit of that Daniel magic, that soothing touch, because that's what it is. It's that's what I've come to realize. It's that psychology of making sure that people have almost like a shoulder to cry on, or they want to feel heard. So you go, you lend a sympathetic ear, you say, that's what it is. It's customer service.
That's a very insightful one. I remember, I think it might have been Alex Hormozy who was saying there's some problems that are emotional and some are logical. Yeah. So there was a problem in England with trains being delayed. Yeah. And the way they would try to solve that problem was make sure the trains are less delayed, but that didn't solve the problem. What did solve the problem was just having a digital thing that told you how long away the train is. Yes. So that even if it is delayed, you know how delayed it is, and you feel nothing changed. Yeah. You're still getting the train at the same time.
You feel reassured.
You feel reassured. Yeah. So like a lot of, I guess what you do is, even if something's broken and it gets fixed within a certain time, the time, like their experience across that time, or
Is
between
making
issue
sure that they
arriving
feel
and issue being solved.
reassured and that somebody's there and that there is somebody with a big warm blanket.
Yeah,
That's going to
something's
be like,
happening,
don't
it's
worry.
being addressed.
Yes,
Like,
I will solve it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a running joke in our office. When something horrible goes wrong in a property that's out of our control, Daniel will still get very high reviews. So the review will say something like, bathroom flooded, there was muck everywhere. Daniel's a great host, and he attended to it straight away, 5 stars.
Daniel felt like a mate, 5-star review.
Daniel felt like a friend is a very reoccurring.
Yeah. But that's part of the service that I try and give to the guests, to ensure that one, they leave a good review and have a good time, given that they spent money to be there, and two, that if they want to come back, they're going to choose one of our properties, because we've got a vetting process. Even when we take the properties on, we don't just let anybody book and stay. They need to be we call it an experienced guest. They need to have a 5-star review and a recommendation from a previous host.
I see.
They need to have government issued ID linked to their account and send us a copy of it. They need to have a profile picture so we know who's staying. And if there's additional guests, they need to also provide ID for them, so that everybody's fully vetted. We know who's there and who's staying. And what we recommend and what we try and install in all the properties are cameras on the outside, so we can monitor who comes in and out. It's very simple, like a Ring doorbell or something, or some kind of CCTV, just so we can monitor and see. And if somebody is, again, it deters people if they see the camera and you've let them know there's a camera. And if they are doing something wrong and they're maybe trying to throw a house party, because that's the other risk that I hear a lot is, house parties, people come and they throw these parties and Airbnbs. We don't take usually one-night bookings, and party goers usually just book for a night, go trash the place, and then leave the following morning. So the reassurance, I guess, that we have is that Airbnb specifically are really good at like protecting the hosts as well. They've got this fantastic thing called air cover, which is pretty comprehensive. It covers properties up to $1 million in damage, which is about now like 700K in damage. And you need to provide photographs, evidence, invoices, receipts, submit it to them. Usually takes 4 to 6 weeks to hear back. You've experienced it.
Yes.
There's a couple of incidences where we had to put some claims in. Yeah. And the outcome's usually been positive, and we get the outcome we want if things go wrong, but they rarely do, because again, the vetting process, and we try and make it very clear that there's no smoking, no drugs, no parties, no additional unauthorized people, no pets, or it depends on the property if pets are allowed.
Yeah. I mean, that gives me, as a landlord, it gives me a lot more confidence as well. Like, I know if I were to long let my property, what am I gonna? I don't really have any control, If somebody wants to have a house party who's staying there, if somebody wants to not leave, if someone wants to not pay rent,
the law,
very little I can do. I'm not allowed to have a camera on the front of the door.
Yeah. As a landlord, when you rent your property out on a long let, you actually are very vulnerable. The law is very much on the side of tenants, and I understand why they made the law like that. It's to protect people from becoming homeless and stop these like rogue landlords. But if you're just a normal landlord and you've got some, God forbid, some terrible tenant who refuses to pay you rent, I know one example of a landlord whose property, he had a tenant in there, he didn't collect a single penny of rent for 6 months, dragged through the court system, thousands of pounds spent, not to mention the stress and the headache and the time invested, just to get this one troublesome person out who wasn't paying rent. And then if you try and go and pursue them, very, very little chance you'll get your money back.
That's crazy.
So
that's so scary.
It's really scary. Whereas with an Airbnb or Booking.com or Shortlet, they don't. The law doesn't offer as much protection to them to people who don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Got
it. So what's your favorite bit about doing this business, or I guess this business in general, or your day to day? Like, what do you like about?
I think it's no 2 days are the same.
Right.
I don't really know what's around the corner. I like that. I like dealing with multiple things, having multiple balls in the air. I feel like one of my strong suits. I can handle different variables coming at me. I like customer service. I like making sure that people have a good time. My landlords are happy. My tenants are happy. And it is a kind of a it's a mindset of like embracing challenge, because it is a challenging role. It's not, I've always said this, it's not an easy thing to do, to manage Airbnb properties, and do it consistently and to a high standard. You are always have to be switched on, and I like that. I like that challenge. I feel like it pushes me outside of my comfort zone. And that's good.
That's good, man. Because you're somebody who, I guess, transitioned from 9 to 5 to being an entrepreneur and having like a lot more pressure.
Yes.
Like being a lot more responsibility.
I think for a long time, in my early mid-20s, I was doing the 9 to 5. I felt quite lost. I always felt like I should be doing more with my life, than just, work, finish work, go home. And I didn't feel very fulfilled. And then I met Hader. Well, he's an old family friend as well. But we kind of we saw each other and started this journey together, down this path, and it threw me into very kind of in the deep end of difficult situations, and I had to learn on my feet. I basically got I think, in my opinion, the equivalent of an MBA without actually getting an MBA, and probably more valuable than an MBA because it's experience, like dealing with property, dealing with like a business, getting it up and running, to the point where I'm now, I'm the CEO, and I've got a team in place. I've got somebody dealing with my accounts. I've got somebody dealing with the listings and online aspect of it. I've got somebody dealing with the operations and cleaning side of things. And we're constantly growing and innovating. So it's a very, very interesting journey. And
so I guess kind of thinking back, if somebody's watching this and they've heard you slightly allude to the fact of doing franchises in the future, maybe they're based in another part of London or another city. What kind of characteristics do you think it takes for this to be the right business for someone? If someone was like, I would be interested in kind of like learning from Daniel, setting up my own kind of version of this on a small scale and growing it, what kind of things do you need? Like, these are the things that you would need in order for that to be a good idea for you.
Very good question. I think one of the main things you need to have is the ability to, pardon my French, get shit done. If something needs to be sorted out, you have to be able to respond quickly and competently to a situation, and you're going to have multiple things getting fired at you. So you need to be able to perform well under pressure, like, and consistently. You can't, like, because it's happened before. Well, I've worked with somebody and they just crumbled. The pressure got to them, and they couldn't take it. So you have to be able to handle the pressure and continue. I think this is true of any role though. You need to have integrity, because people are trusting you with their property. You need to be somebody who's trustworthy and has integrity, so that when you're entrusted with a £500,000 asset, you're not gonna fuck it up, basically. And I think you just need to be quite switched on. Quite sharp and switched on, and have that like good kind of personable. You need to be like a good. I'm trying to think of the best word for it. It's like.
You mean like a social intelligence kind of thing?
Yeah, you need to have good emotional intelligence. You need to be able to read the room, read the situation, and kind of judge the appropriate response. For me, I think I that was something that I struggled with, to be honest, and it's something that I've learned through experience and through continuously dealing with guests and speaking to them. I know instinctively now what to say to a guest or to a landlord to make sure that they have peace of mind and they feel looked after. Yeah,
because I guess you've got to flip your communication style a lot.
Got to put a different hat on.
Yeah, sometimes you're dealing with somebody who might become, you're doing like a kind of prospecting, like, should I work with this landlord or not? Other times you're talking to a landlord. Other times you're talking to a guest who's on holiday and is demanding, and like it's
exactly.
It's not just one kind of.
It's not just one stakeholder. You've got multiple people, and you're going to have multiple hats on. The the guest communication
Yeah.
hat, the landlord hat, the kicking ass hat, I call it.
Yeah.
When you've got a contractor who's late or hasn't done their job properly, you know, you need to be on top of everything. Basically, you need to be very, 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 very organized.
Interesting. Because I think a lot of people like who are looking at, I guess in the same situation as you were and as I've been as Hader, like in a 9 to 5, interested in business, but not really sure. Like there's so many different things being pushed online of like crypto and marketing agencies and all these different things. I would say typically looking for like, what's the easiest way for me to make money?
Yeah.
Would you say this is the easiest way?
Definitely not. Definitely not. There are probably easier ways out there to make money, but I will caveat that by saying it's consistent.
Yeah.
You know, once you've got a property and things are up and running, you know what you're doing. You have a recipe to become very successul. Yeah. And very wealthy.
And the fact that it's not easy isn't necessarily
that's not a bad thing.
That's a moat around
good barrier to entry. Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like industries that stand the test of time and weather storms are ones that have a higher barrier to entry. Yeah. You know, again, I think Hader's probably spoken about this during like the COVID times. We tried a few online businesses as well. When we couldn't do it, when we couldn't do Shortlets, we tried an FBA business. Very low entry barrier to entry, very easy to start, very hard to maintain and scale. Yeah. Whereas this, once you know what you're doing, once you've got the experience and the expertise, which is something that I feel like we have now, with that under our belt, and that we would probably that's what we would offer to anybody who comes on board with as a franchisee, is this combined experience and the team that we have in place, and the years combined of experience that we have, of how to deal with things, how to set things up, the software to use, the way to do accounts, the way to, you know, it's been a good 5 years of blood, sweat and tears that we've like condensed down now. Yeah. And we have something that works and a service that we know and we can stand behind and that we know people like and trust. Yeah. And I think Hader spoke about it on the last podcast as well, actually, that there was a point maybe around COVID or when it was tougher, he was thinking, or maybe even in the beginning, I think the two of you were thinking, you know, Airbnb, it's not the best business because it's very labor intensive and you need to be in a specific location. But then as it went on, you realize that that's actually a huge advantage, because somebody over in South America and India can't just one day decide, oh, they can say, I'm going to start an FBA store, I'm going to start drop shipping today, I'm going to start marketing, and I'm better than them. Like, whereas in London, if you if you're fine with being in London, you're happy to like put in the reps and actually do the hard work, you have a business that's incredibly hard to just start. You know, someone to just come in and a new player's arrived. Sorry, you've dropped down the algorithm and no one's buying you anymore. Exactly. But yeah, that's cool, man. We've got about 5 minutes. Before we go, I think people will be interested. I think very interested in the money side of things. Okay. So maybe, I don't know, how, like, I guess as specific as we can be as possible. Let's say, for example, if you took my studio in like the Paddington area, and then maybe we could talk about like a 1-bed, a 2-bed, or upwards, individual rooms. Like, what's the kind of difference between as a landlord what you would get letting it out for a year, or like what's an average month if you're renting out Longlet versus what would be achievable or realistic in a Shortlet? How much are we talking about? Like 5% difference, 10%? Like, what kind of value would you get Longlet and Shortlet? I think again, it depends on a lot of factors when it comes to pricing, which is why I'm always hesitant to, even when landlords ask me how much can my place make. You know, so my number one question I get asked. It's why I always say is it depends. Yeah, completely depends on. We've seen, for example, even in Paddington, it varies road by road, street by street. One property rents at, I don't know, 200 a night. Another property, one road over, will rent for 250 a night, which is a difference of like £1,500 a month. Yeah, you know, big difference. Yeah. So it completely depends. Right. And it depends. It is a seasonal thing as well. I always say that. For London specifically, your peak season is summer and Christmas. That's when you're going to make most of your money Not to say that you don't make money throughout the rest of the year. It's consistent, but you can charge the big bucks, should we say, in the summer. If your place was going for example, I don't know, 200 or 150 off season, peak season, it'll probably go for like 300.
Gotcha.
So it'll be quite a significant increase.
Fine.
And then in terms of property size, again, I think it depends. Depends on the quality of the place, the size, what amenities it has, if there's any distinguishable features it might have that makes it stand out. Again, it's a journey for people who are booking, and they want to feel like they can imagine themselves being there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that you will encounter is competition trying to beat you out on price. So it's hard to judge and say how much a place would make without actually going and physically seeing it. Got it. And giving and kind of doing some market analysis.
So what are the requirements to work with you in Key then? Like what are the kind of checkbox things that if I'm watching this and I'm a landlord and I'm like, I don't know if I'm eligible to work with Key, what are the things that would need to be?
Well, make sure that you've got consent to let in your property. That's probably the from a legal perspective.
Sure.
It's your property or you have permission to rent it out. And then from there we can have what I call it an onboarding meeting. So we sit down, I take a look at the place, we discuss what it could potentially generate, I do some research, I give you the numbers. If you're happy to proceed from there, we then we send over the service agreement, and then we begin the onboarding process. Like we come in and we do an inventory of what the place has, what it would need to bring it up to an Airbnb or Shortlet standard. There's a few things that are specific that you would want to invest in. Just little quality of life things. To make the experience for the guests nicer. And then book a photography session. Make sure the place looks beautiful. Get it listed, and begin taking bookings. It's a very, very simple process, very easy, straightforward. Onboarding can be anything from a day, 2 days to a week, depending on, again, how much work the landlord wants to put into the place and to get it up to scratch. Some landlords I've recently been working with said he wants to completely refurbish his house. I was like, it's up to you if that's what you want to do, because it does obviously have its benefits. If you renovate the place and it's brand new, people come and they see it's looked after and it's brand new, they're going to be more inclined to look after it. It gives it a bit more of a luxury quality feel, so it's perceived as being more valuable, I guess. Yeah.
And I was one of those landlords, I guess, who I bought the place, decided, well, I guess after a chat with you, I was like, okay, Daniel, what do you think of this place? Like, what do you think would be good?
Yes.
What would increase the value of it on Airbnb? What would they like? Helped me plan the whole thing. And then after the renovations were done, hand over the keys and
got things.
It's all been smooth sailing off until then.
It's been a fun journey.
But where would people, so if someone's interested in working with you, how would they reach you? How would they contact you?
Visit our website, www.key.uk. .uk, not .co.uk. And
Key with 2 E's.
K-E-E-Y, yes. Key with 2 E's. .uk. Fill in the web form, put your contact details, and you might just get a call from me.
From Daniel personally.
Daniel himself. And that's as simple as that. It is, like I said, it's one point of contact. I will walk you through the journey. We'll start the process together and make sure that you're offered what it is that you want. That's the main thing that I ask landlords is, what is it that you want?
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you. I've learned stuff that I didn't even know. Like the stuff about you being cheaper or more affordable than these guys. Yeah. I didn't actually know that. So no? I've learned something. Yeah. Because it doesn't make sense, bro. You're better.
Yeah. But we want to make sure that people join us and have a good time.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Well, good. Nice.
Thanks for having me.
That wraps up. We'll be back again soon.
Key.uk.
Keep struggling. Key.uk.
Yes. Keep struggling, exactly.
All right.
Sweet. Oh, I'm hot.